Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Bundesliga Show. Good evening. Hope you're all well. Obviously, this is the Bundesliga Show brought to you by Over the Bar and in partnership with Bundesliga Boxes. So, obviously, if you guys are new to the channel or new to the show, Bundesliga Boxes are a mystery German football shirt company or provider. And that obviously source authentic t-shirts from Germany. I'm sporting one right now. I've got my Tasmania Berlin top on. So yeah, brilliant company, and we're in partnership with them this season. So go check them out either on Twitter or I think they've got their brand new website, which is effectively up and running now, I'm led to believe. So yeah, go check them out on their fantastic product, t-shirts, scarves, everything that you kind of get in these mystery boxes. So please do go check them out. It feels like it's been a while, Mark, to be fair. Obviously, unfortunately, we weren't able to do anything last week, and you've been on your holes, and so we've been missing our little double acts. How's things? You all right?
Yeah, it's been a fair while, hasn't it? Yeah, it's been, I think this is actually my first show in September, so it's good to be back and everything. I would have my my usual Paderborn shirt on, but unfortunately, I think I was telling you before, Rory, that I made my long-awaited return to five-a-side football last night. I decided to surprise my German friends and turn up in a Paderborn shirt. I got quite a few kind of surprise looks, really, from certain people saying, wow, why? And actually, one of the guys was from Paderborn, ironically, as well. So, that kind of impressed him as well. But, it's good to be back. And, I suppose we should crack on with the scores on the doors. So
let's do it. Over to you for scores.
Yeah. So actually, no. The one thing before that, we've got to do Mark's mystery anagram as well. Yeah. Of course.
Very good.
It's been a while, hasn't it, since we did Mark's mystery anagram? I think the last one was actually the back end of August. Incredibly, yeah. So obviously we had the international break, and then obviously I was on holiday, and I think So it's been a few weeks now since we last did it. But let's remind those of you who have good memories of the last one, which was, of course, Bank Marvel Mom. Yeah, and the answer was actually, indeed, it was Mark van Bommel. It was Wolfsburg's new manager / head coach, Mark van Bommel. Yeah, but as far as I know, Rory, I think obviously you saw the live chat. I think nobody got it this week, right?
It's obviously been 2 weeks, so we'd have to go back and check our commenters. I'm fairly sure that someone posted off the live chat, and it was Mark van Bommel. So we'd have to check who it was to give them credit. So apologies that we don't know. But anyway, we'll give them credit in Thursday's show, perhaps. But anyway, on with your.
If anyone commented it right, just send us a message in the chat. We'll give you a shout out. Don't worry, guys. It's we'll make sure we give you a shout out. Yeah, apologies to anyone who didn't get it there. Okay, so let's move on to the week 5 Mark's mystery anagram. So I'm going to pull it up onto the bottom of the screen now. So as you can see, Free Rug Truth is the Mark's mystery anagram for week 5. So obviously remember, it's got to be something related to the Bundesliga. It's either got to be a club, it's got to be a player, it's got to be a coach / manager related to the top tier of the Bundesliga. Remember to write your comments. In fact, it might even be a better idea if you write it on the show as well, because obviously, sometimes myself, obviously, today it's a live show, so it's probably a good opportunity for you guys if you do catch it. And then if you don't, obviously remember to comment as well at the bottom, so we can definitely give you a shout out next week. So that concludes Mark's mystery anagram. So let's look at the scores on the doors for week 5, which was another entertaining weekend of Bundesliga action. So starting on Friday, we had a rare home win for Hertha Berlin, beating Fürth 2-1. Moving on to Saturday, we had a rare 0-0 draw in the Bundesliga between Bielefeld and Hoffenheim. Augsburg got their first win of the season with a 1-0 win over Borussia Mönchengladbach. Bayern smashed 7 at home against Bochum. Another 0-0, between Mainz and Freiburg. Then the Saturday evening game was a very entertaining 1-1 draw between FC Koln and Leipzig. Then on to Sunday. It was a super Sunday, wasn't it, with great games all across the board. We started with a 3-1 win for Leverkusen in Stuttgart. Then we had probably the game of the day, a brilliant 4-2 win for Dortmund over Union Berlin. Then we concluded with last week's table toppers, Wolfsburg, drawing 1-1 with still winless Eintracht Frankfurt. So yeah, let's move on to the featured four. And I think there's no better place to start, really. We've kind of neglected them a little bit at times this season, haven't we? But obviously, they're really starting to hit the stride now under Julian Nagelsmann. A brilliant 7-0 win for Bayern Munich over newly promoted Bochum, who are now starting to fall off the rails a little bit, aren't they? Obviously, we gave them quite a bit of praise early on in the season, especially after their 2-0 win over Mainz. But now that's 3 defeats in a row now for Bochum and 10 goals conceded in the last 2 games as well. I mean, where do we start? I mean, obviously, we criticised Greuther Fürth a lot when they lost 5-1 at Stuttgart on the opening day. And I think this was a similar kind of performance from Bochum. I thought they were absolutely abject in this game, to be honest with you. I mean, we all know how good Bayern Munich are, and they're really starting to find the stride under Nagelsmann. But I mean, just starting from the first goal, I mean, obviously, Leroy Sané standing over the free kick. You're just thinking, get a solid wall, And what happened to the wall? I mean, it ended up being a 2-man wall. And I mean, Sané could just whip a kind of, it wasn't even the best free kick in the world, really, was it? But there was just absolutely no one there to block it. It goes in past Riemann, the goalkeeper, obviously, who's had a great season so far. And then, Rory, I think it just went from bad to worse after then, didn't it, really, for Bochum?
Yeah, it did. I think, obviously, there was a clear mix of some of the 7 goals were really high quality, and then some of the rest of the goals were obviously a bit of a mess. From a Bochum point of view, obviously the 4th one's an own goal from Lampropoulos. Hopefully I've got that name right. So his own goal. That was very unfortunate. Obviously the keeper Ryman's come out to intercept the through ball from Muller, and then obviously the defender thinks that he's still in his goal and taps it into an empty net. That's obviously a bit of a mess. I thought they probably could have got a bit tighter for the second goal, where Kimmich is allowed to turn and swivel in the box. So that's probably not the best of work there. A couple of goalmouth scrambles, one of which obviously Lewandowski scored. Choupo-Moting, of course, got the 7th. But some of them were individual bits of brilliance and some nice football, particularly the second Kimmich goal. They played some really good interchanging football, Bayern, really, really solid. And he finished that off with a tap-in or a half volley that went in off the post. Gnabry just using raw pace for the 3rd goal, getting past the defenders. So, yeah, the keeper in the back four were kind of on a hiding to nothing, weren't they? Especially after going down early doors. So, yeah, Bayern look like they're hitting their straps. Perfect timing, I guess. Helpful that they've been able to mix and match their players accordingly. Musiala now is a regular and a go-to player for Bayern. He is an up-and-coming player last season, but now he looks like he's got the trust of the head coach in the shape of Nagelsmann. And they're playing some really fine football. And, it's fair to say that Bochum and Bayern's friendship, as we know, there are some friendships in the Bundesliga that they might not be so friendly after getting whipped 7-0. I'm not sure they'll be too happy with them after that. But, yeah, it was just imperious, ominous, inevitable Bayern sort of performance. Makes you think, I mean, is there a team that can live with that in the Bundesliga at the moment? Is a hard question to answer, without being too obvious. So, yeah, great performance from Bayern. Bochum just need to dust themselves down and, go again, because it's been a rough couple of games for sure.
Yeah, I am a little bit worried for Bochum, to be honest with you, because I think after the 1-0, they did actually start quite well. We see that quite a lot, don't we, against Bayern? Teams they start okay and they settle into the game, but then when they concede that first goal, most teams, especially at the Allianz Arena, they just fall apart a lot of the time, don't they? I mean, we saw it last week as well with Leipzig, I mean, the first half they did okay, Leipzig, and it obviously for the first, I don't know, not long really was it when they got the first goal. I mean, it was 17 minutes, but I would say before that they were okay, Bochum. But then after that, it was just like they just fell apart, basically, And I thought, obviously, they missed. One thing we have to say is they did miss Simon Zoller as well. Like he got injured, unfortunately, in the build-up to the game, and I think they actually did a nice touch. They do quite a lot of these things in the Bundesliga, don't they? Like these nice little touches, and they actually put his shirt on the dugout actually as well, number 9 Zoller. Like you wouldn't really see that in the Premier League so much, I don't think. But I think it might have been kind of partly because you do have the friendship as well between the clubs. But they definitely miss him because he's been really good this season, actually, Simon Zoller. Obviously, they had Sebastian Polter, who used to play for Union Berlin. He struggled up top, I think obviously the Bochum Messi as well. We've not seen much of him for a while, have we?
Yeah,
Garrett Oldman. If you remember him scoring that absolute stormer of a goal in the second week, I think. Yeah, like they want a little bit more from him, I guess. I think also I've been a bit disappointed with Robert Tescher as well from the Bochum side, because I know that the guys from the Zweite Bundesliga podcast, they said he was a world beater in the second league last year. Yeah. But I mean, he was obviously got a red card in like his first 10 minutes against Wolfsburg on his debut in the Bundesliga. And then he had a bit of a stinker as well today, this weekend, to be honest. Well, obviously, I think it was the 5th goal. He pretty much put it on a plate for, I think it was Lewandowski, actually. It was... it was a poor performance from him, and they want a little bit more from some of the better players at the minute, because it's been a tough 2 weeks, especially obviously getting beaten comfortably at home against Hertha Berlin last week as well. Bit more from Bochum, but obviously there's going to be much easier games than that. It's a real tough game going to the Allianz, especially when they've just beaten Barca 3-0 in midweek as well, And we're really, really starting to see the Nagelsmann imprint on that Bayern side at the minute. And they're looking very, very ominous, aren't they? Let's be honest. They go to Fürth this weekend. And I mean, Fürth are going to be having sleepless nights, to be honest. They really are. It's like, I feel sorry for them, to be honest with you. But I mean, everyone's got to play Bayern twice, haven't they? And Bochum learned the hard way in this one, that's for sure. So, let's move on to another cracking game this weekend, which, I mean, I think pretty much every game's a cracker, really, for Dortmund these days, isn't it? I mean, they just simply don't do low-scoring games, do they? I mean, I actually thought they might have a chance of keeping a clean sheet in this game. I predicted 2-0 to Dortmund. I just thought they might kind of steady up a little bit after the kind of defensive disaster class against Leverkusen last week and what has been for much of the season defensively. But, I mean... going forward, they're just outstanding, aren't they, Dortmund? I mean, they started off this game, very purposeful start. It has to be mentioned, though, Awoniyi actually got a goal disallowed after about 40 seconds.
Yeah.
And to be honest, when I saw it live, I thought, wow, he's onside there, But no, he wasn't. He was just slightly offside. And that was a big kind of let off really for Dortmund. But then, I mean, that man again, he got a screamer against Leverkusen last week to win the game, and he started the game off in the first 10 minutes. Rafael Guerreiro with an absolute bullet of a half volley from the edge of the area, giving the goalkeeper no chance for 1-0. Then, also another really good goal for the second goal. A different kind of goal, really. It was more of a team move with Meunier swinging the cross in. And that man, Erling Haaland, to thump home a header for his 6th league goal of the season. And then, Rory, the second half was just carnage, really, wasn't it, at both ends?
Yeah, it was. So, again, it looked like the 3 points pretty much... collected, or the job was done after the own goal was scored by on the day captain Friedrich. So he kind of, after really good work from Marco Reus, low cross in, and he kind of bumbles the ball into his own goal. 3-0, and if you're a Dortmund fan, you kind of consider it job done, don't you? But then that's obviously where the killer instinct of this Dortmund team is lacking, and not in the sense of that they don't kill off games, but in the sense that they let teams back into them. They're in total cruise control in midweek in the Champions League, and a late goal slip. That was obviously right at the end in the 90th minute odd. But again, clean sheet not had. And again, on this occasion, it's obviously a foul by Axel Witsel. Just getting himself wrong-sided by the Union player. Max Cruz does the rest, gives them a sniff, and then they really are thinking they might get something from this game after the corner with about 10 minutes or so to go. Summer signing, Volksammer from Bielefeld. I really thought that he'd be a good signing, and he had a really impressive preseason, but he had maybe not started as many games as he would have liked to have done. But yeah, really good header from being in the air. Meunier, for all his quality going forward, Meunier still lacks. He's just not a good defender. Simple as really. He adds an awful lot going forward, and when he's fit, I know Josh from JJD TV was really pleased with his performance and the last few from him. Going forward, he's produced 3 assists already, I think. He's got a great cross on him, but he does lack that defensive capability. So until he either sorts that out or they go for another right back, there's always going to be a weakness there. 3-2, you think, grandstand finish now. 2 minutes later, lo and behold, certain Erling Haaland has got other ideas. Just a long ball forward from Hummels, just a bit of not hit and hope, but just a release of pressure. You expect Haaland to maybe hold up the ball, use his strength, which he has, but just, he's an opportunist as well, which all good strikers are. Great little flick, a lob over the keeper, Luther. You thought it might bounce over the goal, actually, because it bounced so far before the goal. But it bounces into the roof of the net, 4-2. Now job done, game over, and the points go with the home side. Quality game, really enjoyable to watch. Dortmund, of course, we'll say it until we're blue in the face, will trouble any team going forward. They'll score goals, but they will always concede goals with this defence. Brilliant win again, like the other week against Leverkusen. That's 4 goals in back-to-back weeks now for them. But, they've also conceded 5 in 2 games, which, usually means you don't win both your games, does it? So plenty of work for them to do on the defensive side, but at the moment they're just going about their usual business. We'll score more than you. Great game of football, though.
Yeah, if you just look at the numbers, for Dortmund so far this season, I'd challenge any of our viewers to find a team that's had more goals involved in the first 5 games than Dortmund. They've had an incredible 28 goals involved in 5 games. That's just unbelievable, That's an average of almost 6 goals, just short of 6 goals average per game, Obviously scoring a massive 17, but at the same time shipping an incredible 11 goals in 5 games. That's more than an average of 2 goals a game, and yet they've still won 4 out of the 5 fixtures. So it's just incredible numbers. It really is. Marco Rosa's side are going to be great to watch this season. Along with the next team, we'll talk about Bayer Leverkusen, who are not too far behind them in terms of goals per game ratio at the minute. There's some brilliant sides to watch, obviously, in the Bundesliga. But, the question that everyone's going to be asking are Dortmund in a position where they can realistically challenge FC Bayern Munich to the title this year? And for me, I think going forward, they look better this year than they did last year. Bellingham's really turned into a world beater. He runs that midfield now. He's turned himself into a massive fans' favourite up there in Dortmund. Every week they've got banners praising him. Do you know what I mean? I think we said in his first 10 games, he wasn't that great, really, was he? He looked a little bit out of his depth, but my God, has he improved in the last, especially since 2021 came around. He's been absolutely brilliant. One of the best players in the Bundesliga. This was another good performance. Obviously, Reina missed this game, but all in all, he's been very good as well, I think, in the 3 games that he played. But, it's just that defence, isn't it? Union Berlin barely really did anything in this game, did they? They still got 2 goals. And, that is very worrying, really, for them. The penalty comes from nothing, really, does it? Axel Witsel doesn't really need to foul him because goalkeeper Kobel will probably stop Max Kreuzer anyway. But then, I mean, obviously another goal conceded from a corner, which is just par for the course now, really, for Dortmund, isn't it? Like, I think every game they ship at least one from a set play or a corner. And again, so obviously with 8 minutes to go, they found themselves at 3-2 when they should have been 3-0, really, let's be honest, And, on another day, if it wasn't for Haaland's brilliance, he'd have had to probably face 10 minutes of intense pressure there from Union because, we know they are a gritty side as well, and they're not going to pass up an opportunity when they get it. So, obviously, if they are going to mount a title challenge, they're going to have to find a way to start. At least we know that Dortmund have never been a great defensive side, have they? Let's be honest, even going back to the Klopp days, but they need to find a way of at least averaging only one goal conceded a game rather than two or even more than two as it is currently. But yeah, great game, great advert for the Bundesliga, as a lot of games are, let's be honest. So let's move on to the next game, which was another great game between, for me, one of the best teams to watch in European football as well at the minute, and that is Bayer Leverkusen. We expected goals in this game, didn't we? And it didn't disappoint. For me, though, really, Leverkusen, they should have been able to make easier work of this game. I mean, they started out and they're just absolutely flying, aren't they? I mean, Mitchell Bakker, who's been a really, really good signing so far, by the way, especially going forward. Again, he's another of those fullbacks that can't defend to save his life. But going forward, he's like David Beckham reincarnated with the crosses, It's and then he puts a cross right onto the head of Andriy, who puts a really, really good header into the back of the net. The game barely seems to have started, and they're already 1-0 up. Then obviously, as always with Leverkusen, the counterattacks never stop coming, do they? And they fly forward in numbers. Obviously, this time, Diaby putting the cross in, and then Patrick Schick, who looks a new man, to be honest, this season after his brilliant Euros. He comfortably finished, and it's 2-0 before 20 minutes is even over. But then, obviously, the big turning point, I think we messaged each other, Rory, and said, this is going to be 5-0 this game, and then Mr. Dirty Tackle himself goes in with a horror challenge, Andrich, doesn't he? I mean, he must have had more red cards since we started doing this show than any player in Europe, really. And he picked up another one. Obviously, it went to VAR, but the referee couldn't not really give a red card for that one. It was a horror challenge. And then, as what often happens with Leverkusen, they're not the best at game management, are they, Rory? And they didn't deal well for at least the rest of the first half, really.
Yeah, I think it's certainly fair to say the rest of the first half they were shocked by it, and they were in cruise control. As you said, I was messaging you as a Stuttgart sympathizer. I was saying that this is going to get silly soon because it was 2-0 after 20 minutes. Florian Wirtz was running the show. He was doing everything. He actually got the assist for the second goal.
Yeah, he did.
And then, straight down to 10 men. Stuttgart then are able to, keep the ball a bit better, apply some pressure. So obviously it's a free kick that then allows them back into the game. It's a Mavropanos header, which is actually really well saved by Haradecki in net. The returning Mangala is able to tap in from close range. So that's 2-1 going into half time. And then also on top of that, after half time, Leverkusen lost Patrick Schick to injury. So that's another hammer blow for them. I don't know the severity of the injury, to be frankly honest. I just know that he went off injured. But there on in, Stuttgart just couldn't quite muster it. And it's almost from that point onwards, the Schick injury kind of allowed them to put a bit more of a siege mentality. They kind of closed shop for the day and didn't really suffer too many hairy moments. And then is that man the next teenage sensation, Florian Wirtz, made the most of a defensive mix up between Mavropanos and Kempf, I think it was. Threw on goal, lovely finish, 3-1, and that, generally speaking, even though they were down to 10 men, that was the game with 20 minutes left. I think Marmoush may have had a couple of efforts on goal, but nothing overly serious. So, an impressive response from Leverkusen, because as you said, they don't often handle these situations particularly well. They would have been stung as well, of course, by last week, how Dortmund had done them on several occasions, Dortmund coming back from losing positions on several occasions. So very impressive. Again, one of the next superstars to see across your screens is going to be Florian Wirtz. He ran the show, superb player. Had a bit of a slow start to the season. I think that was mainly because of injury. Now he's in that team, heartbeat of the team. Like you said, being able to, play forward quickly with the likes of, Diaby on the wing, being more of a central figure. You've got Patrick Schick, who's now got 4 goals in 4 in the Bundesliga, I think. So he's settling in, using that Euro form to his advantage. And, I was obviously, as we said, the kind of new look partnership at the back, Kosnunu, has settled in quite well. Obviously, they shipped goals last week, but they've done well going down to 10 men against a Stuttgart team who usually like to score goals. Obviously, they're missing players. But yeah, it was an exciting game to watch. Leverkusen handled it really well. Stuttgart, from their point of view, will probably let off by that red card from Andrix, allowing them to be in the game where realistically, if things had carried on with 11 versus 11, it probably would have been 3 or 4-0. Stuttgart just need to get players back, fit. Marmoush has looked capable up top, but they need that kind of Sousa-Kalajdzic partnership to kind of come back and save them a little bit, because they're looking, they're teetering with a lot of big teams near the bottom half of the table. They're in 14th place right now, but on 4 points with the likes of Bielefeld, Frankfurt, Gladbach, RB Leipzig. Like, there are big teams down there, and you expect them to pick up more points. So Stuttgart keep on struggling. It's a bit of a worry, but I'm sure they'll get themselves going soon enough.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the key moments as well, obviously, was I think for me, I've been actually really impressed with Soane as well, the coach of. I mean, I think when he came in, everyone was like, "Who?" And myself included. I think you, Rory, as well. I mean, I think he came in from the Swiss league, and people were like, "This is a bit of a kind of disappointing appointment." Obviously, the last permanent manager was Peter Bosz, who was has got a really good reputation within football in general. But I mean, he's really impressed me. He looks, I think he's kind of taken their attacking to the next level for me, really. I mean, they've always been a good attacking side, But I mean, I've been really impressed. And I thought one of his substitutions as well, when the red card came, he kind of sensed, something's not right here, And he left it a few minutes. They got the goal back. But then he made the substitution. He took Bellarabi off for Demirbay. And I think Demirbay obviously is more of a defensive option. He's got a lot of experience as well. He's been a starter for the last few seasons, but obviously Soane didn't fancy him enough to start him in this game. But he definitely did a good job, and he provided that experience as well, which I think helped. And I think his team talk as well at halftime. I mean, obviously we're not a fly on the wall, but he must have said something good, because to be honest, the second half I thought they were quite comfortable, really, and they actually had more chances in that second half.
Yeah,
and I thought, I was actually happier with the Wirtz score, because I just had the feeling it was going to be one of them where they might get done at the end again, like they often do, really, Leverkusen. Mm-hmm. But yeah, obviously Wirtz had a stormer, as Rory said. He was brilliant in this game, and he was the one that finished it. And to be honest, it could have been finished a few minutes before that as well. I think Diaby probably didn't have his best game in this one. He missed a couple of kind of decent chances as well at 2-1. But yeah, in the end, obviously Wirtz did the business, and they saw it out quite comfortably, really, in the end, 3-1. But yeah, obviously 10 points on the board for Leverkusen. They're scoring goals left, right, and centre as well. They've also scored 15 in 5 games. The numbers are just crazy, really, aren't they? But they've not conceded quite as many as Dortmund, but they've still conceded 7, which is too many if you want to be pushing for those Champions League positions, really. But yeah, good start overall for Soane and Leverkusen. So let's move on to the final featured 4 game, which was another cracker. I mean, if you look at the score, you think, 1-1. It's just an okay game, Yeah. But actually, this was maybe the game of the weekend, to be honest with you, even better than some of the other crackers that we saw this weekend. Some brilliant football. I mean, obviously, starting off with Leipzig with the pressure, really, wasn't it? And obviously, that man, Salazar, got a goal disallowed very, very early on, I think after 4 minutes. It was one of them, really, wasn't it, Rory? I thought it was a little bit unlucky, really. It was like half a foot offside. It had to be the right decision, but, you know, like in the days before VAR, I think they were given, really. You know, a lot of players would have, but obviously it wasn't. And then Nkunku, obviously, on the back of his hat-trick against City in midweek, curled a really, really good effort, and it was very, very unlucky to hit the kind of inside of the post and bounce out, really. But then Cologne got into the game, didn't he, Rory? And it turned out to be an absolute classic, really, this, for me.
Yeah, it did. I was fortunate to watch this one live. And like you said, on the face of it, 1-1 looks like, you know, your bog standard average game. But this really was high quality, really even match teams. Amazing to think that based on last season, isn't it? But yeah, obviously after the disallowed goal, just about correctly, and then the Nkunku chance, Andre Duda hit the post for Koln with a brilliant effort. He's got that in his locker, that kind of spectacular sort of goal. The technique on that was really good. So he hit the post from that. And then I think there was a second disallowed goal. I'm just trying to get my head in the right place of this game. So Modeste breaks through. A high line from RB, and he puts it on the plate for Marcoux to score. That's ruled off correctly for offside. That was probably the most clear-cut one of the entire game, and that was around. I think that was around just before half time. And then the game kind of went a bit weird. There was lots and lots of chances for both teams, and then what looked like a fairly routine free kick to be given and a goal disallowed ended up being the first goal of the game, where I think it's Marcoux is obviously trying to, you know, pressurize the central defensive player on the ball. Simikan, who's just making a bog standard clearance, looks like he clips him from behind, and the ball falls to Modeste and he smashes it in. Didn't look like many people thought it was anything but a free kick, but bit of a VAR check, a long delay. It was like, you know what? He's not going to give this. He's not going to give the foul. He's going to give a goal. And I was amazed because it looks such a foul. But when you look closely, it doesn't really look like there's actually much contact. And Simikan almost trips himself over. And then, you know, Modeste does what a good striker does, just smash it in the net. You never know. And if he obviously doesn't do that, it's a missed chance. So that's 1-0 to the home side after about 55 minutes. So early on in the second half, RB Leipzig, though, responded really well. They again had a goal disallowed this time. So Forsberg put the ball in the back of there, really composed, nice curling finish after Nkunku had set him up. But that was chalked off for VAR. But eventually, RB got themselves back into it. Nice corner, whipped in by Szoboszlai, met by Haidar, a very powerful header in off the bar. Very nice goal, 1-1. Again, you know, you'd think with 20 minutes to go, you'd expect RB to really hammer home and go for it. And they did have some big chances for sure. Again, Szoboszlai was denied by Horn not once but twice. Poulsen had a good volley that Horn punched away. But then the chance at the end of the game, Koln breakout substitution. So the sub Anderson managed to break away in added time. And like he gets the shot away, and you know it's a good effort, and it's well saved by Galacci, and the ball falls perfectly for Duda. And all he's got to do is get some contact onto it, and it's a goal. He's a hero. 2-1, brilliant win, and he shins it straight at Galacci, and he just catches it. What a disappointing finish to a great game. So 4 disallowed goals, 3 or 4 disallowed goals. The post being struck left, right, and centre, chances galore. It was a brilliant game of football. It was a shame it finished 1-1. Could have been 5-5. Yeah, awesome game.
Yeah, it really was. For me, it was one of the best games. Like, I mean, we see a lot of good games in the Bundesliga, but this really was a crazy game, you know. But I've got to say, with regard to the RB defending, you know, like do they have to give the team a goal every single game with a defensive clanger? How many times have we seen this? It seems as though every game, like I think Simakan has been good actually so far until this game. I mean, but this was, as Rory said, it looked like a stonewall foul, but actually it was just a horrible clearance really from Simakan, wasn't it? And it was like, I mean, we saw it in the first game of the season as well. I think it was Mukiele that time, who's done a few stinkers actually this season so far. But to be honest, when I saw the highlights at first of this one, I thought, oh, it's Mukiele who's done it again. But no, obviously this time it was Simakan, who has been obviously the summer signing to replace Upamecano, who has been decent actually overall. Had a bit of a stinker in this game, didn't he? But yeah, for me, this game in many ways, it showed like the difference between the way that the two side seasons are going, really, because I mean, if this was last season, like we saw Cologne sitting back, defending a lot and, not scoring many goals or creating much, until obviously the last 5 or 7 games when they did. But I mean, for me, Stefan Baumgart, I've just been so impressed with him and his side, I mean, when Baumgart was brought in, like a lot of the Cologne fans were just like, really? They weren't overly impressed, to be honest, at all. But I mean, from what he's served up so far, the improvement is like unbelievable, really. And for me, they look a really good side this season, FC Cologne. I've enjoyed watching them. And as Rory said, I mean, if Duda could just have finished that at the end, it would have capped a brilliant night, and great to see a very good crowd as well. Like the games in Nord Rhine-Westphalia can have more fans in than they can over where I am in Bavaria, actually. So if you guys watch some of the games, you'll probably notice that different grounds have different capacities. It's because the way it works in Germany is that every different Bundesländer, as they call them, like every different state has a different capacity that they can have at the moment. So like in Cologne, I think they can have like 80 or 75%. So that's why you saw like a really, really good crowd on. Whereas, for example, Augsburg and Bayern, who are both in Bavaria, I think they can only have like 30% at the minute. So that's why you're seeing like not so many fans in the grounds, especially in the south of Germany, but a lot more in the northwest in particular. So it was great. The atmosphere was brilliant. It was a great crowd, and congratulations to Cologne for the improvement. As for RB, I mean, it wasn't a bad performance. They could easily have won this game. They had enough chances, and if they had a bit more luck with the offsides. But I mean, it's not really working out for Jesse Marsch's side, is it? Let's be honest. 4 points from 5 games, coupled with a six goal hammering against City as well midweek. It's not going well for them. They need a win this weekend unless pressure is going to start mounting on the American, that's for sure. Okay. So obviously the other games weren't quite as entertaining as those 4, but there were still some pretty good ones in there. Let's start off with obviously Augsburg getting their first win of the season. I mean, to be honest, this was a very, very low quality game of football, to be honest. I mean, Gladbach are just having an absolute mare under Adi Hütter so far, aren't they? I mean, the only real bit of quality in this game was obviously the goal, really, when Vargas kind of broke down the right wing. He didn't have a great game before that, to be honest, Vargas. He was quite wasteful, but he managed to pull the ball back for substitute Niederlechner, who he can finish. We know that Niederlechner can finish. I was a little bit surprised to see him on the bench starting on this game, but he did finish well and got the win. But Rory, are you a bit concerned about both of these sides at the minute, really, overall?
Well, yeah, as the table describes it, Gladbach are in more trouble than Augsburg all of a sudden because of their win. They're flying high in 11th place. But yeah, ultimately, this is a game that both sides are struggling at the moment. The one bit of quality, nice cutback from Vargas and a very tidy finish at the near post from Niederlechner. Maybe he needed that kind of opportunity where not all the pressure is on him from the very start and he can come on as a sub and be more of a hero type figure. But ultimately he's the main man up top for them. Vargas is an up and coming player. He's very erratic, like you said, Mark. He's got, it seems like a bit of a temperament issue, like we saw him kick out last season and almost cost them in one of those games when they're involved in the relegation battle. He is wasteful in front of goal as well. So, yeah, ultimately, there's a lot of pressure on Niederlechner a lot of the time to score goals. But, yeah, I think certainly from from a defensive point of view, they are looking a bit more shipshape. Even without the injured Udukai, who would have thought it would have been quite a big loss actually for this side, but they're kind of settling into a set way of playing. Generally speaking, they kept a dangerous on paper Gladbach side fairly quiet. Obviously, there was a disallowed goal for Plie. I think that was for offside from a Stindl pass. So, a huge result for them, even though it's very early on in the season. They needed that desperately. Gladbach, I predicted them to maybe go, win comfortably enough, 2-3-1 here after a good win against Bielefeld. But I just don't know where to start with Gladbach. They've got the caliber on paper is, it's not like they should win the league every season, but they should be top 6 minimum with the players that they have. So reliant on Lars Stindl. How long can he keep going and be the main man for them? Plie and Thuram. Obviously, Thuram got injured after a really good-looking start, which is a shame for them. And injuries have been an issue, but they don't seem to trust Embolo much. He's obviously more of a super sub. And they just throw in these really random performances, which make you think, well, on the form this season, they'll be lucky if they hit mid-table. Really, they're looking very irregular, and I've even seen some Gladbach fans take to Twitter and say we are genuinely in a relegation battle this season. Amazing how the tides have turned in that kind of the balance of power between them and Koln, given last year what it was all about, because they're obviously the more dominant team as far as the league can take things anyway. They look in trouble. And Augsburg, of course, will be very pleased with that. Can they build on it? We'll have to see. They still look shot shy, but ultimately win positive, and you just go into the next week and see how they handle things.
Yeah, absolutely. So, moving on to another team who seems to be going in the right direction. Hertha Berlin, obviously picking up the second win in a row. Some people would say it was a case of the fixtures falling nicely. Obviously, they've got 2 wins over currently the bottom 2 and also the 2 teams that were promoted. This time beating Greuther Fürth 2-1 at home. But, let's be honest, it was a better away performance than what we've seen in the last 2, wasn't it? But, that could partly to do with the fact that Hertha did start the game quite slowly, particularly until they went 1-0 down through the Hergotha penalty. Obviously, you could take a great penalty, Hergotha, can't you? I think that's the second or third penalty he's tucked away this season so far. But, for me, I thought Fürth were quite good until that point. I thought, that they could get at least a point out of this game. I was watching this on Friday night and I thought, they've got a great chance. But then, literally 4 minutes later, they had the big celebrations to go 1-0 up, and they're thinking, we might be able to get our first win here. And then 4 minutes later, straight from a corner, actually swung in by the manager's son, ironically, Martin Dardai. And then obviously Ekelenkamp, who I think had just come on as a sub, actually, as well. I think for the beleaguered Boateng, who's not having a great time on his return to the Bundesliga, is he really? The marquee sign. He looks like, I don't know. He's always been a player that you've got to question his temperament, Kevin Prince Boateng, hasn't he? But for me, he's not done it so far in a Hertha shirt. Obviously, coming back to his boyhood club, but that brings him back to 1-1. And then Rory, they didn't look convincing after that third, did they? They seemed to lose the confidence after Hertha got that goal, I thought.
Yeah, I think, like you said, in this game, the penalty, stupidly given away by Zifuk. Sprung them into action, as you said. The substitute, the debutant, Ekelenkamp, signed from Ajax, I think, on deadline day. Very good start for him. Very good header, first and foremost. And then, with 10 minutes to go, you're thinking it's probably only going one way, even though Hertha aren't, a real force right now. But it was a really good crossing by Richter. And at the end of the day, it's just a bit of a stinker in the end from the defender, who's felt a bit of pressure and just fluffed his clearance, and it's kind of just dribbled over the net. for 2-1. And then, unfortunately, despite how well Fürth had done to stay in the contest, they just don't have enough really at the moment. Maybe just the belief to come back in, especially with 10 minutes to go. It's very hard to do that for any side. But yeah, it looked like Hertha were there for the taking. Certainly in the first half, they were very wasteful in possession, but Fürth obviously weren't able to take advantage. Maybe if they led going into half time would have been a different story for them. But yeah, tricky for them. Obviously, both newly promoted teams are now in the relegation zone. As things stand, of course, things will change. I'm sure of that. But Fürth have just got to get points where they can. Ultimately, they're dealing with a different caliber of football. As simple as that. And you just sometimes, if you haven't got the players who are capable of that, you'll just get found out. So it's just a tricky one, really. Can players up their game to the next level? Can some of them do it? That's what we're here to find out. Right now, they're struggling. Will they get up to speed in time? Let's hope so. Because I don't want to see any team fall away like we had with Schalke last season, because it just ruins the fun of the relegation race. As a neutral fan, anyway. So yeah, good win for Hertha. Perfect timing, as you said, with regards to the fixtures. So let's see how they go on from here.
Yeah, I think obviously we do often see the promoted side struggle. The kind of markup between the second league and the top league is very big. You've got a lot of very well-run clubs in the Bundesliga, and they know how kind of signings you need to make. They're like some of the smaller clubs, you like to Freiburg, Mainz, Augsburg. They know the way around the Bundesliga, and it's like it's hard for these newly promoted sides because they don't have the same financial clout that like some of the Premier League teams that get promoted from the Championship, for example. Like we see teams in the Premier League like your Fulhams, and they'll go and spend 100 million quid and buy a load of rubbish, basically. Do you know what I mean? It's whereas in the Bundesliga, they'd be lucky to spend 100 grand, to be honest, let alone. And we saw that with both Fürth and Bochum. They're very much put together on a shoestring budget, but hopefully, I think they've got to kind of get some inspiration from Bielefeld last year, because we saw them really struggle early on. I think they lost like 6 of the first 8 games or something, but then obviously they really steadied in the second half of the season and started to pick up some big results. So there's a long way to go. Yeah, I wouldn't get too worried for either of those promoted sides just yet. Okay, moving on to last week's table toppers, Wolfsburg. Obviously, were held to a 1-1 draw against still winless Frankfurt under Oliver Glasner. I think this was a case, probably Wolfsburg should have won the game, really, but definitely Frankfurt are definitely improving, aren't they, Rory? I think there are signs to believe that their first win is definitely on the horizon now, really.
Yeah, I reckon so. Like you said, the run of play was generally speaking for Wolfsburg. Weghorst hit the bar early on in the first 20 minutes from a corner, but against the run of play. A nice Kostic low cross was met by the new man, Sam Lammers, who's now got 2 goals in 2 games. Got his first in Europe the other day. So, is he going to be able to fill a hole, which is obviously clearly not being filled by Boré, unfortunately, at the moment. So he didn't look great in his first game, I have to be honest, because it was the game on the Sunday against Stuttgart. He looked a bit underwhelming. But, first game can often be a tricky one. Maybe he hadn't played for a while. But that's obviously a good sign for them. Kostic settling back into things after his, throwing his toys out the pram about not getting a transfer. So he's now settling in and accepting his role. He's a big player for them. Still not seen an awful lot from the likes of Kamada, who had a really good season. Their defence has just conceded silly goals. Case in example, the one against Stuttgart last weekend against 10 men. You should be winning that game, of course. But you can't really criticise them for conceding one against Wolfsburg. The goal eventually came after good work from Babu down the wing. Weghorst being able to slide in at the back post after a good save from Trapp initially. So a good point for Frankfurt in the circumstances. Wolfsburg probably think that they should still be perfect, but a draw with those 2 teams, you can both be happy, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the big worry for Frankfurt, though. Boré is not only coming he's not even coming close to replacing Silva's quality last year, is he? And he just looks, to me, he looks a guy that's just really short on confidence. Like, he's playing like stupid balls across the front when he should be kind of holding onto the ball, and he's not really had as many chances the last couple of games, but like the first few, he should have had like 2 or 3 goals really in there. And I think after that, he's lost his confidence, and I'm a little bit worried for him at the minute. I mean, obviously, he doesn't speak the language. You know, it might be a little bit difficult. I know that it can be tough for some of these guys coming from South America to the Bundesliga, which is why they often tend to go to La Liga, where they obviously speak Spanish in most cases, or Portugal, where they speak Portuguese. So. I mean, it's quite tough, really, because the culture is very different. You know, I mean, I hope he does manage to settle in, because I think from what I've seen of him at River Plate in South America, he looked an exciting player. And I think on paper, he was a marquee signing, really, for them on a free transfer. But so far, it's really, really not worked out for him. And I hope he can get a goal soon, unless it could be a long season for the Argentinian. Okay, so let's finish on 2 0-0s. Obviously, we never really dwell too much on the 0-0 games. I mean, for me, I'll take the first one, Rory. I think probably mine should have got the win, really, against Freiburg for me. I think aside from the early header from Nico Schlotterbeck from Freiburg, I mean, we've talked a lot about how good they've been this season, but I think Christian Streich was visibly quite angry with their performance at times in this game. I mean, it's one of them where probably both teams would have seen it as a winnable opportunity, really, wouldn't they? And I think, you know, Mainz probably should have won it. A couple of good efforts from Boetius and Burkhardt, a couple of good saves as well from the Freiburg keeper. But I mean, for me, it wasn't a great game, was it? As 0-0s usually aren't. But I mean, for me, Mainz probably should have got the 4th win out of 5. But Freiburg will definitely just be happy to escape with a point there, really, because it wasn't really their day at all in this game. But a clean sheet is a clean sheet away from home, you know. And Rory, what about the Bielefeld v Hoffenheim? Anything to mention on that one?
Yeah, it was actually quite an exciting game as for 0-0s. Quite a lot of chances, plenty for the very wasteful Bielefeld. As much as Mainz should have taken the points from Freiburg, Bielefeld should have taken the points off of Hoffenheim. The man from Nuremberg, I forget his first name. Yeah,
Robin Hack.
Robin Hack, yeah, looked really dangerous early on. Had a chance. Where he hit the post early on. He then set up Fabian Klos, but took too much time in the area, and it was saved eventually by Baumann. Kramaric had a few opportunities, particularly in the first half for Hoffenheim. And after good work from Raum, who's come up and done really well in Hoffenheim colours, but well saved by Ortega. So still proving impossible to beat Stefan Ortega. So yeah, good point it's hard to say really if it's a good point for both, because Bielefeld keep on drawing. That's their 4th out of 5 now, isn't it? So that elusive win, you know, those extra points do make a massive difference, don't they? So they're probably thinking they've missed out on a couple there. Hoffenheim after the early season optimism I had for them, they just can't seem to put the ball in the back of the net. Unless it's Kramaric is assisting someone, he's not obviously scored any goals yet. So that's a bit of a worry for them. But yeah, not terrible 0-0, but still clean sheets all around.
Yeah, I think it's a funny one for Bielefeld, because for me, I actually think they've been pretty good this season. You know, even though they've not won, I think they've been looking a bit more on especially at home, they've been playing more on the front foot, you know, looking to attack more. But for some reason, they just can't get the goals this season, can they? And like, obviously, in contrast to the likes of Dortmund and Leverkusen, most of their games have been very, very low scoring this season. You know, only 8 goals involved in their 5 games this year, and only 3 of them scored, which is a little bit worrying, let's be honest, you know. But I still think there's enough in Bielefeld to think they'll stay up relatively comfortably this year for me. I think there's probably 3 or 4 teams that are significantly worse than Bielefeld this year. And I think as for Hoffenheim, it's just, you've got to question really how long are they going to stick with Hoeneß, you know, because I mean, obviously he was brought in and under quite big expectations, obviously from the second league, from Bayern's second team actually, and they kind of thought he was going to be the next Nagelsmann from what I can gather, but it's just not really. his stint there, it's been a case of like one step forward and 2 steps back, really, hasn't it? With his, and I know he was close to getting sacked, I think, round about last Christmas. But I think he had a good kind of spell of form towards the end of the season, a decent spell of form, we could say. And then again, he starts this season well with a great couple of wins early on, but it's just not kicked off really, has it? And it's just, I don't know, obviously that's 2 games in a row now against Mainz and Bielefeld where they've not scored, which is not great really with an attack and squad as good as theirs. Because let's be honest, Hoffenheim have a really, really good squad, and they should be chasing for top 6 really. So I've got my question marks as to whether Hoeneß is really the man, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him relieved over the next 5 to 10 games, to be honest with you. Okay, so that pretty much concludes our roundup for week 5, another great week of action. So let's finish with the hero and zero. So over to you, Rory. Do you want to introduce the hero this week?
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of ummed and ahed about this a little bit. Honourable mentions for Florian Wirtz and Haaland, but in the end, we actually went for a keeper. Hero of the week, we're going to give it to Timo Horn of FC Koln after a brilliant performance in net against RB Leipzig. Lots and lots of big saves, helping his side to a very impressive point, if not quite the win. So hero of the week goes to Horn in net. Mark, over to you for the zero.
Yeah, my zero. And obviously, we could have given it to any of those Bochum defenders, really, particularly the Greek defender who got the own goal. But I thought that'd be a little bit harsh because obviously Bochum is still kind of learning the trade at this level, and it was against Bayern away from home. So for me, the zero had to go to that man, Andrich, really. I mean, some people might be a bit surprised at this one because he did get the opening goal. Obviously, it's not often we see a goal scorer get zero of the week, but I mean that tackle is just, you can't be doing. He's meant to be like their experienced head in that midfield in what is otherwise a young team, and you can't be doing that away from home in a game that you really want to be winning, and he could have cost his team very easily. Not only that, it's a dangerous challenge, he could have seriously injured the player from Stuttgart. I thought it was a terrible tackle. He deserved red card, and for me, not really what you want from one of your leaders and your more experienced players in the team. Obviously, the man signed from Union Berlin. He's very much a hit and miss player, isn't he? I mean, he offers a lot of good, but he's always got that red card or penalty giveaway in him, hasn't he? So someone that's got to kind of clean up their act a little bit in terms of discipline for me. But yeah, they still got the win anyway. So
very true.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Just before we finish, then we've had confirmation in our chat this evening from Bundesliga Boxes. Their new website's up and running in the next 10 days, so good news there. So you can check them out there. Mark, quickly over to you to finish off for the evening.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been great to get back to business. So let's just finish off by kind of checking it out. So remember to check out our Twitter as well. So you can check out Over the Bar FB and Over the Bar Extra as well. I think we actually had a few problems with our Twitter feed, so just be patient with that as well, guys. Remember, we will be back up and running soon. It's just a few technical problems there, I think, on that front. So keep with us. We will be back on there with that. Also, remember to check out our otbfootball.net as well, which is like the centerpiece of our stuff. Remember to check that out because I think a lot of people kind of neglect the site a little bit, but it's a really good site to check out. We've got some guys that really know what they're doing with the tech side of things that kind of run that side of things for Over the Bar. So check that out as well. And obviously, remember to hit subscribe as well because that really helps us to produce more and more work for you guys, and it helps us to kind of invest a little bit more time into producing more shows. We have got a lot of other shows ready for you as well. We're going to do a little bit more on the European front as well this year, obviously specializing in the Bundesliga particularly, but other teams will be covered in there as well. We'll get a few experts from other leagues as well on, which should be quite interesting for you guys. And obviously remember to check out we have another live show on Thursday, of course, which will be our predictions and fantasy football as well. So remember to check that out as well. So you got double header of live shows this week with the Bundesliga show. Remember also check out the League One and League Two stuff as well. So don't forget that. But thanks for joining us, and we'll see you all on Thursday.
Thank you. See you then.